Today I'm making a video on a very special camera that I can't seem to find any videos on YouTube about. It's this little camera right here. This guy is one of the craziest little tiny cameras that I've ever seen. It's a 35mm film camera. It is very plastic, like the whole body, the lens, you can't even change the lens. Now, I'm brand new to shooting 35mm film. I bought a film camera maybe 3 years ago. It is this guy right here. Now, this is my Olympus OMG. I love it, and I think it's one of the best cameras for a beginner to start shooting 35mm film, but this video is not about this camera, even though this is an awesome camera. This video is about this little camera. This camera actually belonged to my great-grandmother. This camera is, I believe, designed around the mid to late 80s, so it's not a very old camera, but it is a little older. It's close to 40 years old now. Originally, I opened this camera, and all of the internal workings of this camera are, well, plastic. And pretty much just like a pinhole opens up, and it allows you to let light in on your film. You would put the film in, close the door, roll it up with this little wind on the back. You can see that little winder on the back right there. You would use that to wind up your film, and then you would click this top button, and it would make a very quick little plasticky shutter sound. My regular film camera, I'm used to adjusting the ASA, for what ISO film I'm shooting on. I'm used to adjusting my shutter speed and having a light meter and pulling focus and having all of that wonderful ability. So when I move over to this camera, I looked at it and I said, whoa, there is no way to tell this camera what type of film I'm shooting on. There's no way to adjust the shutter speed because it all ends up being pretty much that one little click. So that shutter is really just an open and shut. It's pretty much the same shutter, I believe, for every single different mode on this camera. So there is one thing you can change on this camera, and it is not the focus. You have 4 modes here. You have like a sunset mode, a fully sun mode, a cloud mode, and a half cloud and half sun mode. And you change those by rotating the lens to different modes. I will tell you a little bit about my first impressions. So, I've never used this camera before. I've only shot photos with this one. This one has been fantastic and phenomenal. And here are some of the photos I've taken with this camera. You can see it takes beautiful photos. So I decided, you know what? Maybe I'll chance it. I got a few extra rolls of film for Christmas. Let me throw one in this bad boy. And I threw one roll of my Kodak Gold 200. And the one thing that was the scariest was when it was done with all of my exposures. When I had finished all of my exposures, I had gotten to 36 exposures on this bad boy, and I go and hit this little film release button right here on the bottom. I hold that in, and I open this, and I go start spinning counterclockwise, and I'm spinning, and I can just feel it getting really tight and feeling all the tension, and the sprockets that were holding the film did not want to release that film, and I kept slowly going back more and more, and I was like, dude, you're going to break the inside of this camera. It is all plastic. You're going to ruin your camera, your film's not going to go back in, and you're going to have ruined everything you've shot on here. So I decided to go clockwise, and that's not the correct way. And I felt it going like a little bit of tension, and then all of a sudden it was just really loose, and I was like, oh, that's not supposed to do that. So I started going back counterclockwise, and I felt the tension again, but it felt better. It felt a little bit looser, a little bit nicer. So I started slowly just winding it slowly back, and I start counting because there's 36 frames. So I'm like, this shouldn't go more than 36 frames. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 45, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and by this point I'm like, I think I don't know if it's like completely like wound back up yet, and then all of a sudden I hit 41, and there's no tension anymore, and I just keep spinning this around, and I'm like, there's no tension whatsoever. So I release the film release button, and I'm like, maybe it's rolled back up. So I go into a dark room, and I slowly go to open the back, and I open the back, and it pops open, and all of my film was perfectly preserved. I got some very, very interesting pictures. As you can see by these pictures, they came out interesting. Some came out not so great. Some came out pretty wonderful. They have a very nostalgic, overexposed feel to some of them, and I'm sure I can bring that down in editing if I really wanted to. Some of them I just snapped and they looked completely different than what I saw through the viewfinder. The viewfinder of this camera is literally just like a hole through the camera. Like you can see it. It's not looking through the lens. So it is going to be different than what your actual lens is going to be capturing. It'll be off just a hair. But some of the photos turned out great and some of them turned out, well, like this. And I don't think it's a bad thing. These photos look pretty awesome and some look like garbage. But that's to be expected with a cheap little plastic camera. And honestly, I didn't think that this camera was going to work at all. When I originally had opened it and got all the plastic feel to it, this back plate right here was sliding and I was like, oh, is it broken? And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's to allow the film to slide past it. And then part of me was looking at it and I was like, well, I don't really know if everything works on here. It's not completely like light proof on the back. So if this door right here lets any light in, it'll ruin your film and just expose all of your frames. So I had a lot of doubts when I came to this, and after taking the photos, you know, I was like, this is pretty wonderful. Honestly, it is a piece of garbage camera, but is one of the coolest things I've ever shot on and had some of the most fun with. And honestly, there's no videos on this camera whatsoever, and this camera, in my opinion, was one of the coolest things to just play around with. It's a point and shoot camera, and it was very, very easy to operate, very, very easy to use for the most part, besides trying to rewind the film. But yeah, I mean, it was something that I just wanted to make a video about and show you guys that it's a lot easier than you think, and it's different than what you think, because it's nothing like this camera. If you guys want a video all on this camera, I can make a video on that, but let me know. I'm not super, like, I've never been super versed in film, but my buddy just got me into doing, you know, shooting on 35mm film, and now I'm in love with it. And now I've spent a ton of money developing and shooting films, so it's a lot of fun, but I enjoy it. Anyways, if you guys like this video, let me know. But this is a video that I just wanted to make and put out there for people who have never heard of this camera and, quite frankly, might not ever hear of this camera. So with that, I'll wrap this video up and just say thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.